This right here is my Mesoheros Gephyrus, and it was yesterday I saw my peacock bass first. He caught my South American bumblebee catfish, he had it in his mouth for a good hour, then he spit him out, and this guy grabbed him, and that was yesterday. Here we are over 24 hours later, and he has this catfish still stuck in his mouth. So now I have to go in there and try to take it out because I think the catfish might be stuck. It's a South American bumblebee catfish. These catfish have like, wait, let me see, he might have spit it out. No, he didn't spit it out. But these catfish have big heads, and they have like spikes on their heads. So I'm thinking he may have gotten in his mouth and he got stuck. So I'm gonna try to. I really don't like doing this, especially with this fish because he's like a special fish. He's rare. I got him to this size, but gotta get this out of his mouth. Okay, so got the tweezers, and I'm just gonna. Come on. I really don't. Oh, I don't like handling my fish because I know it's stressful, but he gives me no choice. So I'm about to take him out of the tank and just do it. Look at that. The fins were stuck in his mouth. Look at those sharp fins. And that was in there for over 24 hours. Eventually this fish could have suffocated. So look how big he was. Why would this fish try to eat a fish this size? He's about 3 inches. Yeah, that's my South American bumblebee catfish. I put him in this tank because I wanted to I don't even know why I put him in this tank. I knew that there was predators in this tank, but this fish hides very well. But the other day I did a rescape and must have made him come out of hiding. And this guy got him. So this is one of my prize fish. This is in the same family as the Feste. Look at him. I had this fish for 3 years. It took him 3 years to get him to this nice size, and that would suck to let him die that way. So I had to take that out of him. And eventually, when this guy gets bigger, hopefully he could go with my monster tank because these fish do get really big. I initially thought this was Mesoheros natus. It was sold to me as Mesoheros natus, but I was speaking to some experts and they told me that it's actually Gephyrus. I'm trying to see if his mouth was injured. It's not looking too bad, but yeah, this is Mesoheros Gephyrus. I'm gonna let him go. He probably took some damage ripping that fish out of his mouth, but it's better out than in. And that is just a day in the life. Now in my last video I showed you guys those African cichlids that I have grown out in my pond, and you see these African cichlids. The plan is to allow those small African cichlids to live with these bigger tilapia that come from Africa. Originally these tilapia were just bought to be dither fish. I bought them to make my main fish more comfortable. I originally had these 3 Mozambique tilapia. Not the colorful or the prettiest fish, but then I got this male. He still isn't really as beautiful, but his personality is absolutely amazing. And I decided, let me give these guys a spotlight. So I'm going to put these 4 tilapia, this 1 male and these females. Eventually he is going to get much bigger than them. But yeah, put these guys in my 210-gallon aquarium and allow those small African cichlids with all those colors to swim around them. I definitely think that's going to be an amazing setup. So that's one of my future projects that's going to come to pass pretty soon. Then we have this peacock bass growing out in here. This is the Cichlid Xingu peacock bass, about 6 inches, growing really slow. But eventually I'm going to toss them in this big tank when it's finished, and hopefully that gives them a nice reason to start growing. We also have a female Severum. She's pretty small. She's not going to get too much bigger. I want her one day to be able to live with my peacock bass, but as of now she's way too small. So the only way to do that is to get a male, and if I have a male that gets bigger and they become a mated pair, then she has a chance of being able to live with those bigger fish. We have the female Dovai. Eventually I want to live with the peacock bass as well, because the female Dovai nowhere near as aggressive as a male. Same thing with a female jaguar cichlid in here. the Mesoheros as you saw. Eventually I want him to live with the peacock bass. Then we come over here, I'll give you guys a quick look. This thing is almost done, but we're not going to talk about it until it is done. So down here is the 125. This tank has Adonis, my Dovite Jaguar hybrid. And I must say, he's been in this bigger tank and he's not the same. I'm thinking that the tank is just so big, he's not used to it. So he does swim all around, but he hides a lot and he's not as aggressive. He's in his tank with a bunch of Bleckos, and I also put some, not Africans, I put some convicts in here. The convicts that I had in my 5-gallon tank with the Paradise Gourami, I had 2 of those came in here. I found one more inside my filter when I cleaned it out. So I have 3 convicts in this tank. I just saw them before I started filming, and they're alive. So that's definitely a sign that he's different. So he's under this rock over here. He still eats like crazy, but he's not as mean, and it's probably because he's a little bit lonely in this giant 125. He's only a 5-inch fish, so this 125 feels pretty huge for him. Over here we have a grow out with some small peacock bass. We have a Cichlid Calbera, we have a Cichlid Azul, and we have a Snook Cichlid. Pretty soon I want to put them in a bigger tank to encourage more growth. And then we have this tank. I shuffled around the filters, so instead of having 1 overflow, I have 2 overflows, and it allows me to increase my gallons per hour in this tank, creating clearer water. A lot of people was commenting why I have dirty water. One part was because I needed to clean my filters, and one part was because I wasn't having enough turnover. So I changed that, and you can see the water is nice and clear. When it comes to these fish, these 2 were teaming up on my Cichlid temensis. So that means, that doesn't mean, but because of that, I was assuming that these 2 are a mated pair, or they're trying to become a mated pair, because the way they were attacking this temensis, it was extreme. And I was getting scared at one point, to the point where I wasn't turning on these lights for days. But yeah, they were getting very aggressive. So the plan is, when this tank is up, which should be maybe a week or so, I was going to put this guy in his tank, the flagtail, a few of these other guys. I was going to leave these 2 in his big tank, and I was going to put that smaller Xingu peacock bass in there, and hopefully with the presence of this big guy, it encourages that smaller guy to get bigger, and then eventually, like a few weeks later, add those 2 to this tank. But you're just going to have to take it one day at a time, because as of today, he's out here and they're not doing anything. Normally he was hiding back there because they just kept attacking him. Besides that, the pike has phases. Sometimes he's aggressive, sometimes he's not aggressive. Right now he's not aggressive, but last week he was extremely aggressive. This female jaguar, eventually when that tank is empty, I want to put her in that tank with my male jaguar. But I'm trying to decide, should I do that? Or should I put the male jaguar with these cichlids in this big tank and then put these grow-outs in there? Just a lot of confusion. I've got a lot of movement to do. Eventually my bala sharks, my 10-foot barbs, and the cichlids, my 210 are going to come down here. Those tilapia are going upstairs. So I'm going to do a lot of scrambling. That's why it was best to just not show you down here until all was done. But you guys keep asking, so I might as well give you guys a sneak peek. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put this tank back together and put these fish to sleep. I did have a huge loss in this tank the other day. Came home, found a bunch of fish dead. Some of my most prized fish. If you know this aquarium, if you follow me, you know some fish that I didn't show you guys. Whatever I didn't show you that used to be in this tank is dead, and that's because I had an ammonia spike. So definitely had some huge losses, and I'll show you that a little bit later with the full fish room tour. But yeah, that's just a look at what's going on, and I guess we'll wrap it up there. Catch you guys on the next one.